Welcome back to another Canon review. I'm your host Terry, and today we're looking at Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Feels like it's been a while since I've done an actual comic book movie. So this is exciting, but look, let's rewind the clock. Sony announced that they were coming out with an animated Spider-Man movie about Miles Morales. I said that is so stupid on so many levels. I was not with this idea at all. This was right around the time that Sony announced that they were giving or leasing the rights to Spider-Man into the MCU, and they were doing Homecoming with the MCU, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, okay, cool. And then they said, well, we're going to make our own movie just on top of that. So it's like, okay, you already got Spider-Man out there, and why do you need to do this? More probably because people, the average person doesn't know the difference. So they're like, oh, MCU, Marvel, Disney, they're making Spider-Man. Like, yeah, they did a good job. No one's going to give Sony the credit. Even if you knew the situation, those people didn't give Sony the credit. So they said, let's make our own thing just on the side so people can know that we not joking out here. And I'm like, okay, well, obviously it's animated because the contract says you can't make a live action one. Then just leave it alone. Like, an animated big budget movie like those don't go well unless it's an animated franchise, or from an animation studio. And so I was against it. I thought they were doing it for all the wrong reasons, and they might have, but I will say the trailer came out. And while I felt the same way largely, I'm like, I don't think this is going to do well. I did say, wow, at least they made it different. At least it wasn't just, okay, we're just throwing out some random animated Spider-Man movie. No, it looked fresh, and it looked like it was going to be different than anything we've seen. And then, of course, if you saw Venom, you saw the little scene peak after Venom, and it was like, okay, wow, this really is coming together. And then you saw you heard about the cast, and it was like, this okay, I'm a little bit interested, but overall bad idea. Then the reviews come out, and it's beyond anybody's dreams. It held 100% for a while. Of course, that one person came in, but now it's down to 97%. But either way, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which doesn't really matter. What matters is it held a 9 out of 10 average rating. Like, bump the percentage. Look at the average rating of the movie, and you will see that it is 9 out of 10. That is beyond most Oscar movies that have won Best Picture. And so this is this is the highest rated film of 2018 so far. And so when you talk about those type of numbers, and even though I always say Rotten Tomatoes not the end all be all, when you talk about those type of numbers, people got to take notice. So it's like, okay, well, what does this movie have? And so I went in with no real expectations. I just kind of wanted to see what they would give me. And I will say this, coming out, it is one of the best movies of 2018. I currently put it at my number 3. I'm kind of going back and forth, but I would say that's one of the best movies of 2018. And it really has a lot of points in creativity. I'll say that up front. And I talk about a lot how people do ratings differently. For me, creativity is a big thing. Not only in the story, but in the way you present it with the visuals and everything. And we have not seen a movie like this. It's like a live action comic book. It moves in a different way. It definitely uses colors and music in a different way. It does something. I mean, you could probably do it with a live action movie, but I just think animation allows you to be a lot more creative with the environment and make that part of the story. So, you do these comic book things where little words pop up or little noises happen, or they put big words on the screen. Like, it's so creative and it's so immersive, but it doesn't stop there. I love Miles Morales. I'm not a big comic book reader. If you listen to me, you know that. And I'm familiar with most characters, But Miles is one I never really dove into. I really didn't even like the idea. I still kind of like the idea of another Spider-Man that's ethnically diverse. Like, Spider-Man is Peter Parker, Peter Parker Spider-Man. This isn't a mantle that you pass down. Now, that is part of the movie's narrative, and that's part of the narrative now, is that anyone could be Spider-Man, but I don't like that. To me, it was always a unique Peter Parker thing. So I never liked the character enough to get into it. After this movie, I love Miles Morales. Now, I've heard some people say that they read his stuff and they were like, but watching this movie, they love him. I just think, I don't know what the other version is, but I say this version of Miles Morales is amazing. And so I really connected with him. Now, that's the other thing this movie does well. You got the visuals, then you got the cultural significance, where yes, Miles is a Black and Latino mixed superhero. And he's a young kid. I think he might be even younger than Peter was when he started out. So they show him in his environment, one that's kind of relatable, definitely going to be relatable with kids today. But for someone that works in education, I see that this is more authentic to the life that people have right now. And so whether it's, the representation of Spider-Man wearing, Jordans sticking on the side of a building, or watching Miles, be a graffiti artist and tag things, or, listening to the music. And the music is big. Everyone talks how big music is in movies and scores, but then downplay it when people use like, different type of music than the classic rock and whatever. We're talking about like actual hip hop and stuff that, connects to the world. Using that type of stuff just makes this more culturally relevant to the, likes of Black Panther. Not saying that it's Black Panther, I'm just saying in terms of the connection it has of seeing something on the big screen that you don't usually see representing your type of culture. It has that, and it feels a lot different than the most movies that you'll watch, just like Black Panther did. So then you got the cultural thing, you got the visuals, and you got great characters. You got, well-written scenes where I knew the story of, Miles was a different, where he is attached to his uncle too, but instead of his uncle being a good guy that dies, his uncle is a villain, but he looks up to him, and how does that conflict? And then his dad is a cop. And so it's an interesting dynamic. And I think they display it in a way that makes you really care about each of the characters. So, the main characters and the family of Miles is really good. Then you talk about the geek part, the Easter eggs, the Stan Lee cameo. You talk about all this Spider-Man lore. Like, I don't even want to spoil. I'm not going to spoil this stuff. I'll get to that in a little bit, but it's a lot of Spider-Man stuff in there. And you've seen the commercials. Like, there's, multiverses. So we talking about Spider-Gwen. We talking about Spider-Ham. Noir Spider-Man. It's all types of the deep cuts of Spider-Man stuffed into this movie, but it plays so naturally. Like, it doesn't feel rammed in there. It's very much Miles Morales lives in the world where Spider-Man is Spider-Man, and he's been Spider-Man, and it's Spider-Man everywhere. But now the Spider-Man's not around and he's Spider-Man. It's like, okay, well, now I gotta live up to that image. So all that stuff is still around me. All these, everything, costumes, the toys, the action figure, all the pub about Peter Parker Spider-Man is still around me, but I'm the new one. And so they just set this world up where you could really naturally feel all this different cuts of Spider-Man, and it doesn't feel stuffed. So great job with the geek part stuff. And then the story's good too. Like, the very essence of what happening, it ties into some different Marvel things, with Wilson Fisk and whatnot, but it works, man. It feels like this amazing gumbo that they just put all these ingredients in and made, and they luckily came out with a good meal that on the surface doesn't look like it should have came out as a good meal. I mean, you got connections to Netflix. You got connections to the MCU. You got connections to the video game world. You got connections to the deep cut lore. You got connections to the animated Spider-Man series. You know, you got all these connections to Homecoming. Like, there's so many connections of all over from Spider-Man melded into this movie, and it shouldn't work, but it really does. And so for me, the movie isn't a breath of fresh air. It's a rush of fresh air. Cause the movie isn't like a nice deep exhale. No, it hits you in the face. The visuals punch you in the face, and it doesn't stop until the movie's over. But it's so fresh. It's so different. It just opens the mind up, because we just haven't seen anything like this movie before in this type of style. And there's some things that are a little weird. There's some things that might be a little too much, but they put it all out there. And for the most part, I think the movie just plays so well. So I ultimately enjoyed this movie. It is so good. There's good jokes. There's actual, like, emotional parts, and there's good action. Like, it's shot very well too. So there's some good stuff. Overall, I would give it a 93 out of 100. So A-. I hesitate, as good as I think it is and as much as I like it, I hesitate giving it this, top shelf grade, because I know most of what I'm liking is the freshness of it, the originality and creativity. And the movie has to be more than that, so I'm not going to give it all the points, but I think that's a big part of what it is, so I give it an A-. Alright, so quickly going into some spoiler sections, so if you haven't watched it, don't listen. Shout out to the Spider K, like they had the Spider Buggy, but if you saw all the suits in there and Spider-Man suits, you saw that they had the Spider-Man suit from the video game PS4. I thought that was super cool. I mean, like, I haven't played or got the game, but I really want it. But I've been watching videos, so I know how all these different suits play into the game. And so to see a lot of those suits in his stash, and then also to see the actual Spider-Man PS4 suit, that was a nice little shout out. Man, I feel like a lot of people, I think that Stan Lee cameo got me. Like, again, I didn't, I'm like, okay, yeah, he passed on. He was an older person. He lived a great life, that we knew it was coming. And so I didn't really expect the next cameo to get me, but I was like, wow. When I saw Stan, I was like, dang, Stan didn't make it. Maybe he saw the movie, I don't know, before he passed, but I'm like, man, Stan didn't make it to see this. That's kind of messed up. So yeah, that kind of got me. I'm not gonna lie. That kind of got me. What else? I think the two I don't know how I feel about two Peter Parkers. I mean, I get it. It's like they're both Peter Parker, but they had different choices. One was blind, like him being blind. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Miles Morales being in a world where Spider-Man exists and then he dies and he takes over as Spider-Man. I think I would have felt more comfortable if this same story happened, except Miles, there was no Spider-Man where Miles is from. And so when Peter Parker came in, he was like, oh, wait, you're Spider-Man? Or you had these powers? He's like, yeah, I'm Spider-Man. I've been doing this for years. And he showed him the ropes. That would have felt more, but it set up this ability to have Jake Johnson be the loser Spider-Man. And I did not know how that was going to work. I felt the same way as some other people, like Jake Johnson, no. But it worked when you juxtaposed him to the real Spider-Man, or to the original Peter Parker that everybody loved. And then it's like, okay, well, this version of Peter Parker that didn't work out so well. And so Jake Johnson played that beautiful, like, swinging around in jogging pants. Like, it was just funny. And I really appreciate how the journey really, like, it has some weight to it. That's what I loved. Like, there were so many moments where it was like, okay, we're going to do that typical origin story where it just clicks and now he can do it. And eventually they did that in the end, but I'm glad that they passed up the temptation to do it in the middle of the movie where it was like, oh, this is your time. We really need you. And then he still can't do it. Or wait, we really need you now. He still can't do it. Like, I like that he failed. And when he first got the powers, he's ripping off everything because he doesn't know how to control his ability to stick to things. That small detail in itself just made me happy, where it wasn't a glance over. Like, I love the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man, but that kind of glance over where it was like, oh, I can stick to things. Oh, I'm doing it. Oh, I'm jumping around. Like, he had his fail moments, but it happened pretty quickly. He became Spider-Man. I like that not only did he struggle, but he's wearing some one size fits all Spider-Man suit from the store most of the movie. I love all that. It's a real struggle, and it's a real moment to tell him many times, like, it's not about just having the power. It's about, getting knocked down and getting back up. It's about what's inside of you. And, that's that tried and true Spider-Man thing, but I think they did a good job of showing that. And then, so the moment when he finally lets go and becomes Miles Morales Spider-Man, I feel like it was earned by that time. So, really like that. Aunt May was weird. What was that Aunt May? That Aunt May was different. I feel like it was a mix of the MCU Aunt May and I don't know. I feel like, and I might be crazy, for those that know John Schnepp, who passed away, he used to joke a lot about, someone brought up that they were making an Aunt May movie. And so they used to joke about it a lot on Collider and just, talk about what the Aunt May movie would be like and how she's a spy or a secret agent. And I feel like that was almost a hint and a wink at the audience for that joke, because the emails came out when the Sony hacked that they were going to try to make an Aunt May movie. And I feel like that was a wink to that. It was like, oh, well, maybe, Aunt May is not as, fragile and weak as we thought. So, I don't know. That's just me projecting. So, yeah, it was just good. It was good, man. That's really all I gotta say. Again, go to the comment section if you got any, comments on the movie. You saw it. What did you think? If you didn't see it, tell them what you want to see. Thumbs up, subscribe, share it around. And remember, if you heard it here, it's official canon.